It's Monday, September 19. In the headlines, plastic waste still a challenge in Jamaica. Regionally in Grenada, 400 plus teachers reappointed. And in sports, Barbados Royals bats for CPL playoffs. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett is appealing to Jamaicans to take public order seriously, as blatantly disregarding it poses an existential threat to both tourism and the wider community. He made the appeal while addressing stakeholders in Negril following the recent unveiling of a new welcome sign for the resort town. Mr. Bartlett says disregard for public order is currently the greatest threat to the continued growth and development of the tourism sector. He says, quote, "It concerns us to the point where we have established a destination assurance policy strategy. We are trying to build with you the destination management so that we can bring all the partners together: the municipalities, the police, public health, fire, the churches and community leaders, and all the key players who are involved in enabling the development of an orderly arrangement of our communities," end quote. Citing an operation in St. James dubbed Restoring Paradise, Mr. Bartlett says tourism entities and other stakeholders have already started working with the security forces to drive this process of changing the public order. He says the government will continue to invest in upgrading the physical infrastructure in townships to enable the facilitation of merchandising and marketing of wares. Dozens of volunteers from various state entities, NGOs, and schools participated in an island-wide coastal cleanup day on Saturday. The event was held in recognition of International Coastal Cleanup Day, which takes place on the third Saturday in September every year and is the largest one-day volunteer event in the world. Volunteers were seen with plastic bags, gloves, and tools trying to remove varying types of waste from the shoreline. More than 1,000 pounds of garbage was collected from One Man Beach in Montego Bay alone. Over in Hellshire, St. Catherine, volunteers said it was the worst yet. When Jamaica first joined the ICC movement in the mid-90s, cleanups were generally small and took place in only a few locations across the island. In 2008, the Jamaica Environment Trust became national coordinators of ICC activities in Jamaica, working with state agencies like NEPA and the Tourism Enhancement Fund. Plastic waste was dominant on the shorelines as volunteers took time out to pick up thousands of tons of garbage on the weekend. On January 1, 2019, the government of Jamaica began enforcing a policy to implement a ban on the manufacturing, importation, distribution, and use of single-use plastic bags, scandal bags, plastic drinking straws, and expanded polystyrene foam products. Based on the amount and type of waste, it is clear that more needs to be done. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Senator Matthew Samuda, says the government will be making changes to the ban on single-use plastic bags and polystyrene to counter practices being carried out by persons that are outside of the regulations.
Plastics. How did plastics become a crisis? It's an interesting issue if you really think about the history of what plastics are, what we use them for, how we consume them as individuals. The problem you have with plastics is that because of how good it is as a packaging material, because it is so light, so cheap, we have gotten away. We have overdone it. Everything is wrapped in plastic, even what doesn't need to be. The reality is 13% of Jamaica's waste is largely plastic, or is some form of plastic, whether it's PET, HDPE, PC, whichever other category of plastic it is. And we know that for the vast majority of this plastic, it is indeed plastic bottles. Why don't you just ban it? And people ask me that every single day. Just ban the plastic bottles. And quite frankly, you can't, because the alternative is glass, and globally there's a glass shortage. I don't know if there'll be some global event that makes glass far more available and cleaner ways will come to sterilize it. But as it stands now, that's not an option. So we have to target it through a deposit refund scheme. But there are items that we have banned. Persons largely will remember the scandal bag ban, styrofoam ban, plastic straws. And the reasons were that these items are largely non-recyclable, they're non-biodegradable, and in many cases, because of how they're used, they emit carcinogens that are harmful to human health. We consume, especially with lunch boxes, a lot of gravy, a lot of heat. Heat and styrofoam not meant to mix in that sort of way for human consumption. Hence the challenge. Now, has the ban been perfect? No, there's no perfect public policy. Has the ban reduced by a few 100,000 tons the amount of plastic waste going into our waste stream? Absolutely. Is that a win? Absolutely. Are we proud of it? Absolutely. Can we tweak it to make it better? Absolutely. We have seen persons who have gone right outside of the regulations on plastic bags. So they've gone a little thicker or a little larger, trying to use plastic instead of paper-based and recyclable alternatives or reusable alternatives. That means we're going to have to move the goalpost. And that move will come this year. We're going to have to increase the size both in terms of dimensions and thickness and types of plastic bags that are banned. So for all of those who may be online now listening to us and contemplating their next round of purchases, I would suggest strongly to you that you look at the recycling alternatives, because you will get stuck with goods. And the minimum order quantities for these sorts of things, you will have months of goods put down. And that increase in size is coming and coming fast.
328 new constables graduated from the National Police College of Jamaica in Twickenham Park, St. Catherine recently. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who attended the ceremony, commended the new recruits for answering the call to serve and protect.
And I asked one searching question. Why did you join the Jamaica Constabulary Force? And all the answers came back with a uniform core: to serve and protect. Very important. Of course, there were other embellishments. It was always my dream. It will help with my personal development. But at the core of all the answers, to serve and protect. So even though you're seeing different squads coming from different training campuses, the training is standardized, and you're getting a uniformed product of professionals coming out to represent the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
The Prime Minister says the JCF is critical to national security.
I will be the first to say that whenever a Jamaican loses their life to violence, it becomes not just a loss to those families and loved ones, friends, neighbors, and community members, but it is a threat to the nation's security. Every Jamaican must feel safe in their country.
He says the objective is to build the JCF's capacity to effectively combat crime in the society.
It is important for me to point out that for many years we have not had the numbers that our population and the level of challenge and threats that we face require. We have had, for some periods, high attrition in the police force. The government has implemented a deliberate strategy of increasing our numbers. And so we are expecting that this year, certainly with the numbers that we are seeing here today, that we should be able to put out another 1,300 new additions to the JCF. This will certainly help to compensate for the between 450 to 500 that may leave the ranks of the JCF.
Noting that criminality and violence are rooted in social, educational and familial issues, Prime Minister Holness said the entire society must be mobilized to address this public health emergency. People's National Party held its 84th annual General Conference inside the National Arena in St. Andrew on the weekend. The party's president and leader of opposition, Mark Golding, addressed hundreds of party supporters, calling for the government to set aside $40 billion to provide a cushion for the most vulnerable Jamaicans from the effects of rising inflation. He's arguing that the country has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which lasted over 2 years and severely disrupted the economy, which he says is yet to recover lost ground.
Policy must always fit the needs of the moment in which we find ourselves in history. And at this time, the people need caring government that will cushion the crisis and help them to ride out the storm. It is not just about how we live in the present, but it is also about how we prepare for the future. We must protect our society today so that we can ensure a better and stronger tomorrow.
Jamaican Romain Wells has made Antigua and Barbuda the 195th country he has visited. Mr. Wells was given a warm welcome at the airport.
He was welcomed for Jamaican Romain Wells, who ends his tour of 195 countries with a stop in Antigua and Barbuda Sunday. Family members and friends traveled to the country ahead of his arrival to help him celebrate the historic feat. The Antigua and Barbuda Tourism Authority and Jamaica's Honorary Council were also there to welcome the prolific traveler.
195 countries.
Yes.
All the countries in the world, and you saved the best for last. Antigua and Barbuda.
We're going to represent the Caribbean.
First Jamaican, first Caribbean black person, male, to visit all 195.
Your decision to complete your visit in Antigua and Barbuda only not resonate with the historic and the long-standing relationship between Antigua and Barbuda and Jamaica, but it only speaks to the continuous bilateral relationship between the two countries.
Wells says curiosity about different countries and cultures fueled his journeys after he migrated to the United States in 2007. He has shared many memories from his trips with the more than 7,000 people who follow his Instagram page.
It's not easy, but you can do it. Start from somewhere. Visit your neighboring country, work your way up, work, save, be patient and persevere.
Wells says he chose Antigua and Barbuda as a final stop on his journey because it was easy to get flights for his friends and family, and he also wanted a country that has what he calls nice vibes. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
The National Export-Import Bank of Jamaica, Exim Bank, has earmarked $100 million for an e-commerce fund to assist small and medium-sized enterprises in expanding their businesses online. Through a partnership with the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the Exim e-commerce funder will finance up to 80% of the associated costs for critical inputs for SMEs, which are in the process of or are interested in trading through an e-commerce platform, in hopes that it will increase export sales and upgrade the SMEs e-commerce platforms to reach global markets. For your market updates, in foreign exchange trading for Friday, September 16, the US dollar sold for an average of $152.73. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.68. The pound sterling traded for $174.35, and the euro sold for an average of $152.72. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 1,441 points. The junior market index advanced by 16 points. The combined market index declined by 1,196 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 582 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 108 stocks, of which 48 advanced, 46 declined, and 14 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Viber Preference, Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share, and Jecon Corporation Limited. The overall volume leaders were Mailpack Group Limited with over 3 million units, One-on-One Educational Services Limited with over 2 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Plico Investment Fund was the only active security with a volume of over 13,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, 0 securities were traded. In regional business, with one of the fastest growing economies in the world, Guyana is expected to see a decrease in direct funding and instead an increase in investments in the private sector by the European Union.
Yes, the amount of money will be less, and the higher the GDP of Guyana, the less you will get. So the money has been fixed for the coming 4 years. That is less than it was before. And that reflects the progress that you're making. And I don't think that is a problem. And I will use the words of the Director General. He says, official development assistance, what they call ODA, that is not the engine that makes a country move forward. It is at best the oil in the engine. The engine is what the private sector will bring in, is foreign direct investment. And so can we use part of our resources to bring in, to leverage the private sector? Can we bring in with, let's say, a few million euros of development assistance? Can we bring in a multitude of that in terms of loans, in terms of guarantees, in terms of foreign direct investments?
In market data for oil, oil fell by more than 2%, pressured by expectations of weaker global demand and by US dollar strength. Brent crude fell $1.90 to $89.45 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude dropped $2.57 to $82.54 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, we start with Grenada. Officials from the Ministry of Education say more than 400 teachers have been reappointed and possibly more reappointments are expected by the end of September. More in this report.
The Ministry of Education has returned more than 400 teachers to the classrooms for the Michaelmas school term. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Finley Jeffrey, was the one who made this announcement.
I think the reason why it is so important is because you would want to begin the school year with all your teachers basically on board, and so that contact time will be maximized for students. The good news is that we have reappointed all the teachers who we need to reappoint. So far we have reappointed about 250 primary school teachers, 210 secondary school teachers. So those are the teachers who had appointments for 2 years and the appointments came to an end and you have to reappoint them. This is important.
P.S. Finley also said that there will be new teachers appointed this year to fill in numerous short and long-term vacancies.
So you would have some new appointments because, of course, You'll have teachers who are exiting the system. You'll have teachers probably going off on study leave, maternity leave, teachers who for one reason or the other they have retired, because now we have a retirement package that looks interesting. So some people are retiring based on age, some people are retiring based on maximum service and so on. We have to also feel this. Now the issue now, however, is that a lot of these we get them late. So we still have teachers who have just decided that they're going to study.
Jeffrey also stated that the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Public Service Commission, will address the issue that has been pointed out when it comes to salary payments.
Because we've always had the hue and cry that teachers are being paid. Some teachers are being paid very, very late. You enter into the system, you teach 3 months, 4 months, and you don't get paid. Now, under this new system that we're working, the fact that these reappointments are already done with PSC, once we get those back, then we anticipate that by the end of this month, September, the teachers would get paid, which would be something excellent.
In Antigua, Environment Minister Sir Mulwin Joseph says developing countries will have to be more strident and forceful in making developed countries pay for their role in the warming of the planet. It comes following a multi-agency UN climate science report indicating that the world is headed in the wrong direction concerning climate crisis.
The World Meteorological Organization coordinated the researchers who released the Uniting in Science report last Tuesday. The report says countries need to make their greenhouse gas emission reduction pledges 7 times higher to keep global temperatures from exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the findings expose how the world is still way off track and calls it a scandal that developed countries have failed to take adaptation seriously. Environment Minister Sir Mulwin Joseph agrees.
We are going into the next COP in Egypt in the condition of the world worse than it was a year ago when we went to Glasgow, and that's very troubling. Of course, what has contributed to that is the war in Ukraine and the fact that Russia has curtailed its supply of fossil fuels to Europe.
He says this has led to some European countries turning to coal, causing increased pollution. The Environment Minister says developed countries' failure to properly address the climate crisis means island states such as Antigua and Barbuda must intensify their demands for climate justice.
The Prime Minister is leading the discussion on this matter. You would have heard the possibility of investigating whether or not there is a legal recourse. Well, Antigua and Tuvalu and Vanuatu, the 3 island states that are pursuing this as one of the possible responses to what's happening.
St. Lucia is currently observing laws surrounding human trafficking to ensure citizens are protected overseas. The announcement was made during a closing ceremony of a 2-day workshop on human trafficking held at the Police Academy.
Local law enforcement personnel have taken steps to detect, protect, and prosecute perpetrators of human trafficking after St. Lucia was placed on U.S. Tier 2 watch list. The exercise focused not only on sensitizing law enforcement personnel, but to gain insight on human trafficking and to renew St. Lucia efforts to human trafficking. The activity came to an end on September 15. In renewing St. Lucia's commitment to anti-trafficking and to the prevention of human trafficking within the region, Home Affairs Department Permanent Secretary Dr. Elizabeth Bailey stated that the task force is fully equipped to bring an end to practices conducted on its shores. Dr. Bailey also responded to media reports of the situation regarding the ill treatment of Canadian farm workers.
There is a bit of uncertainty as to exactly what is going on. So we are watching and monitoring this closely as a task force. so that we can ensure that our citizens are well taken care of and that the law regarding human trafficking will protect them and our counterparts and partners overseas working alongside our Labor Department will be able to provide us with the necessary information so that we can stop any harm coming to our seasonal workers, if that should be the case.
Women who were part of the Seasonal Agricultural Farm Worker Program in Canada revealed their experience, describing it as ill treatment and disrespect. The Home Affairs Department continues collaboration with various departments of government to protect citizens attempting to be trafficked or trafficked through St. Lucia. On September 14th to 15th, more than 60 participants, which include law enforcement officers and members of the National Task Force for the Prevention of Human Trafficking, completed a series of workshops. The training was part of the work of the government of St. Lucia against human trafficking and will work towards energizing the country in their efforts to strengthen its position.
We would like to renew our commitment to anti-trafficking and to the prevention of human trafficking within our region and within the world in general. So we are committed to working very hard and to bring an end to any such practices arriving on our shores or that's been done within St. Lucia.
The workshop was facilitated by Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Tanya Price. Price has been investigating human trafficking over the past decade and has led over 70 human trafficking investigations. She was assisting with the efforts in identifying human trafficking cases. The special agent has been on island for the past 3 weeks and has been engaged in various meetings with officials.
In news on the international scene, Queen Elizabeth II was laid to rest this morning. The state funeral was held at Westminster Abbey in London, followed by a committal service at St. George's Chapel in Windsor.
Let us give thanks to God for Queen Elizabeth's long life and reign, recalling with gratitude her gifts of wisdom, diligence, and service.
The days of man are but as grass, for he flourisheth as a flower of the field. For as soon as the wind goeth over it, it is gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more. But the merciful goodness of the Lord endureth for ever and ever upon them that fear him, and his righteousness upon children's children.
In sports, on the weekend, Barbados Royals confirmed their spot in the playoffs of the Hero Caribbean Premier League campaign with a commanding DLS victory against the Guyana Amazon Warriors. Guyana Amazon Warriors' cadre of spinners took all 6 wickets to fall in the Barbados Royals innings. Having reduced the Royals to 62 for 5 when the rain delay came, Imran Tahir then removed David Miller immediately after the restart, but Jason Holder and Mujib Rahman compiled a 39-run partnership of 16 balls to give the Royals a total to defend. But in the end, the Royals coasted to victory by 29 runs. And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.